Good morning, everyone. Pastor Shane here. I am starting what will be weekly sermons online through Facebook Live through the season of Advent and Christmas, and actually a little bit beyond that. As some of you know, I am no longer serving at Woodland Park United Methodist Church, and I'm actually awaiting a reappointment at the end or after Christmas. So sometime beginning of next year, I'll be reappointed, and I can give you the specifics about that at a later time. But right now, I want to start giving these messages through Advent, because Advent, Christmas, these for a pastor, along with Easter, are some of the really just most fun times to preach. And I did not want to miss out on being able to do that. So even if nobody watches these, I'm doing them for me, and hopefully, maybe one or two of you will watch them and get something out of it. But I need to just keep myself sharp, and just wanted to go through this season and give these messages, because I really love Advent. What I do want to start with this morning is I'm going to sing a couple of verses of O Come, Emmanuel, which is kind of like the Advent hymn. And it's one of the ones that I like quite a bit. But I think in, Advent is the journey of anticipation. It's looking forward to something that's coming, and this song really speaks to that. So we'll start with that. Then I'll read you a few scriptures, and then we'll get into the message. And if you know the song, go ahead and sing it with me. I think you'll find it enjoyable. There's something liberating about just singing alone in a room. O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel, that mourns in lonely exile here, until the Son of God appear. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. O come, thou wisdom from on high, and order all things far and nigh. To us the path of knowledge show, and cause us in her ways to go. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel, O come to thee, O Israel. All right, that's a good way to get going. If you're part of a church, or you've been through the Advent season in church, you know that the main themes that are usually hit on every year are peace, hope, joy, and love. Those are the four candles, and then you have the Christ candle. I'm going to also do those, but I'm putting in there also a message on trust, what now, and then claiming the promise. So this will actually take us all the way through New Year's Eve. So I think Christmas week will have a few of them. But today we're going to talk about peace. And I've titled this message, A Journey of Peace. And I'm going to use two scriptures from the lectionary. I'm going to be following lectionary readings. And that is, for those of you who don't know what that is, that's just an ordering of scripture readings that are available to churches to use, that kind of yearly take a congregation through portions of the Bible, and they say that over the course of like 3 years you'll get the bulk of what you need to know, or what you need to have heard from the lectionary. But today's scriptures are from Isaiah chapter 2 and then Matthew. So I'll read Isaiah first. It's chapter 2, verses 1 through 5. And this is what Isaiah, son of Amos, prophesied about Judah and its capital, Jerusalem. There will come a time in the last days when the mountains where the Eternal's house stands will become the highest, most magnificent, grander than any of the mountains around it. and all the nations of the world will run there, wanting to see it, feel it, fully experience it. Many people of all languages, colors, and creeds will come. The people will say, "Come, let us go to the Eternal's mountain, to the house of the God of Jacob, so that we might learn from him how best to be, to go along in life as he would have us go. After all, the law will pour out from Zion, the word of the Eternal from Jerusalem. God will decide what is fair among nations and settle disputes among all sorts of people. Meanwhile, they will hammer their swords into sickles, reshape their spears into pruning hooks. One nation will not attack another. They will not practice war anymore. O house of Jacob, people of the promise, come walk with me by the light of the Eternal." So that's from Isaiah. Matthew's scripture is going to come from chapter 24, and this is verses 36 through 44. "No one knows the hour or the day, not even the messengers in heaven, not even the Son. Only the Father knows. As it was in the time of Noah, so it will be with the coming of the Son of Man. In the days before the flood, people were busy making lives for themselves. They were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, making plans and having children and growing old, until the day Noah entered the ark. Those people had no idea what was coming. They knew nothing about floods until the floods were upon them, sweeping them all away. That is how it will be with the coming of the Son of Man. 2 men will be plowing a field, one will be taken, the other will be left in the field. 2 women will be somewhere grinding at a mill, one will be taken and the other will be left at the mill. So keep watch. You do not know when your Lord will come, but you should know this. If the owner of a house had known his house was about to be broken into, he would have stayed up all night vigilantly. He would have kept watch. He would have thwarted the thief. So you must be ready, because you know the Son of Man will come, but you cannot know precisely when." And those are our scriptures from Isaiah and Matthew. And I love them both, and I like the combination of them in this week for a message on peace. So like I said, the title of this message is A Journey of Peace. And one of the things that I think seems obvious, but we forget a lot of times, is that journeys of all kinds, they begin with a choice. There's that old Chinese proverb that says a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. But what you have to choose to take that step. And I think that's the spirit of that proverb. I think back to like Lord of the Rings, that journey to the mountain to destroy the ring. It began with a choice. They had to choose to go. And you actually have in the Fellowship, the movie there, that whole group choosing to go on this journey together. But it's a choice. We have to ask ourselves questions and then choose, one or the other. Do I stay? Do I go? Do I keep doing what I've always done? Do I take a step into the unknown? This one's my favorite. Do I stay comfortable in my isolation? Or do I risk being unsettled, uncomfortable, and upset, maybe even upset, in order to find possibly something amazing? The question is, do I keep doing what I'm doing, or do I try something else? And that there's that saying that if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting to get the same results, that's the definition of insanity. And I think the question then is, do I want to become insane, or do I want to become, sane and try and find something else? As a pastor, it's easy for me to actually think in terms of the journey, because I'm often leading the journey. So I feel in control. I feel like I'm the one who gets to make the decisions. The choices from the front seat are a lot easier to digest a lot of the time, because, like I said, we feel like we're in control. I'm the main driver when my family gets into our car. There's 5 of us. There's me, my wife, and our 3 kids. And generally, I have control over most of the things. I may not have always decided where we're going, but I'm the driver, so I'm going to pretty much decide how we're getting there. A lot of times I decide what's on the radio. Now, I'm not a tyrant, so I give some of that ability to my wife, and every once in a while to the kids. But it's usually not even questioned, like, all right, we're going to listen to this. When it's just me in the car with the kids, we always listen to what I want to. I'm in control. I'm the driver, so I get to choose where the journey goes. It's easy to feel in control when you're the driver. I get to choose where, how fast, the route, all that stuff. If you're in the backseat, so sometimes I have to stop and think about what is it like for everyone else who I'm leading or the congregation that's I'm supposed to be having follow me. It's not nearly as easy to figure out what choices you have to make when you're being dragged along. Sometimes it feels that way because a lot of times we feel helpless. When we're not the one in control, we feel like we're helpless on this journey. We can feel dragged along. We can feel like we're being taken to a place we don't want to go. And we have no say in how we get there, how fast we get there, what directions we go. We just feel helpless. It reminded me when I was a kid, my best friend Chad, his parents had this two-door car. And I've always hated riding in two-door cars because I feel trapped in the back seat. I feel absolutely claustrophobic back there. And it's because once you get behind that seat and it goes back and those doors close, you feel like you have lost all control over your safety, over where you're going, what you are at the mercy of the people behind the wheel. And so that is a helpless feeling. And you do have choices though. You have choices in that moment, in that situation about how you're going to deal with it. You can choose whether to add joy to that trip or not, or, whether you're going to make it miserable for everyone else. I think that's choice as a passenger, as the backseat person or whatever. You get to choose how you're going to interact with this situation. Are you going to make it miserable for everyone else? Or are you going to add joy to it? Will you enter into the spirit of the journey? Yeah, it might not be where you want to go, or it might not be where you think you want to go, but, it's where you're going. So are you going to enter into the spirit of the journey, or are you going to kick it? Are you going to dig in your heels? Are you going to really just make it absolutely miserable for everybody and probably still end up where you're going anyway, but the journey just sucked the whole time? You get to make that choice as the person who's basically kind of not in control of the journey. But spoiler alert, where really nobody's in full control of the journey. We can plan for it. We can try to make it as smooth as possible. We can plan the route. We can do all that stuff. But, there are all kinds of variables, unknowns, that even the driver has to face. So you get to choose how you react in that. Advent, like I said before, it's about anticipating something. It's about looking forward to something that's on the horizon. It's about looking ahead to what's coming. Ultimately, Advent is a journey. It's a journey. Matthew's scripture is really interesting for this message because those people didn't even know they were on a journey. They didn't realize there was a journey. They were just too busy. They were caught up doing all kinds of other things. And none of those things that they were doing in that scripture, marrying, working, none of that stuff is inherently bad. Just like most things in life, it's whether or not they become your sole focus and what you do with them. But they were just too busy to even recognize that they were on a journey. And I think that really should resonate with most of us because I know for me and most of the people I've ever led, they're just too busy. We are just too busy. We are trying to pack too much stuff in. We're either trying to make more money, we're trying to get, more followers on the internet, or probably the thing that underpins it all is we're just trying to impress more people. We're trying to impress more people. And for what, really? Like if people actually thought about us as much as we think they think about us, it would be amazing. But that's not the case. We're trying to impress people who ultimately mostly don't care that much. But we're so busy doing more. We're so busy doing more that we don't pay attention to where all this busyness is really leading. Like we're doing a whole bunch of things, but we're not going anywhere with it, or we don't realize that it's taking us to a place that we're not being intentional. We're not being intentional about where we're going or even being prepared for that. Where is all this busyness taking us. That's kind of the point that Jesus is getting at in the story there in Matthew. He's basically telling people, wake up to the reality around you. Wake up to the reality around you and be alert to what is coming. Wake up to the reality around you and be alert to what is coming. But then the big question is, what is coming? Now we could get into a whole kind of conversation, because there's a whole spectrum of belief on this, about what's coming or how it looks, whether you whether you sit on the side that says, we're waiting for a supernatural second coming of Jesus, or you're like, well, we need to help usher that in, and maybe the second coming is something more of like a new heaven, new earth that we help create. Wherever, or maybe you don't believe any of that. Maybe you're just like, this is what we have, and we have to figure out what to do with it. Regardless of what you believe in terms of that, everybody has this innate sense of something next. What is next? So the question is, what is coming? And this is really, I think, a place where Isaiah's prophecy kicks in to this message. Because the hopeful thing for us, and it probably doesn't feel like this, is very true, but the real hope, whether you're an atheist, whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Jew, whether you're a Muslim, whether you're whatever you are, the hope that underpins all of that is that peace is on the horizon. Peace is on the horizon. Isaiah's prophecy, it starts off, there will come a time. He even says it flat out in this prophecy. So I'm not talking about now, but there will come a time, right? There's this hope. And isn't world peace, or just personal peace, but world peace, isn't it almost an innate human longing, if mostly unrealized? I will be the first to admit that if you look out in the world today, it does not seem like peace is even close to coming. And that may be, but we'll get to that in a second. But the longing for peace, the longing for restfulness, the longing for no more fighting, no more war, that longing it's innate in us. That's a thing that we crave it. Now, we have a horrible track record of actually making it happen or being a part of it. But there are people in this world and organizations in this world that their sole purpose is to try and bring peace to this world. Now, like I said, I think that peace is on the horizon. I think it's an innate human longing, but my toddlers, they might disagree, They seem to be nothing but chaos. But even when they have nothing but chaos, eventually they begin to go downhill. When it's nothing but nonstop chaos, eventually they hit a wall and they start going downhill. And the more chaos there is, the quicker that descent happens. And I think the longer we're alive, so the older we get, this is one of those things that you sort of realize the older you get. The longer you're alive, the more you desire peace and restfulness. I know for me, I apologize to myself almost every day for all the naps I didn't take as a kid. Because the older I get, the more I really need it. The more I just really need peace. And that's just me in my personal life and just chaos. But I'm just thinking, even when I see tragedies on the news, or I watch the news and I see just nonstop bombardment of anger, angst, pain, destruction, all these things, I have like a physical response to that. Like my body, I shoot with adrenaline and I shoot with sadness, and I just like, there's got to be something better than that. I long for peace. And I think that is a part of our human nature, that even when we have trouble creating peace, we desire peace. We desire restfulness, and we desire a world where everything is just good, right? Now, the other part of that hope is, while the first part of that hope is that peace is on the horizon, I think the other flip, like the flip side of that coin, is that we can choose peace today. So there's a both then and now, a then and now. The then is peace is on the horizon, but we can choose peace today. And with Isaiah's vision as a guide, we can make the choice to journey toward that realization of a dream that could change how we live in the world today. Now, there's a kind of an old joke, an old story that says, how do you make the sculpture of a horse? And the answer is you just carve away everything that doesn't look like a horse. And I think we can start to realize peace in the world by carving away all the things that don't bring peace. Like whether it's to yourself or others. Now, obviously, I'm not carving my kids out of my life, but we can live in such a way that says, all right, we know that this doesn't work. We know that this is not restful and relaxful. We know that running around bouncing our faces off the couch is probably not the most peaceful, restful thing. So then we teach them in a way that says, here's a better way, a more peaceful way to do that. We just start to carve out the things that aren't peaceful or the things that don't bring peace. And from an organizational standpoint, from a church standpoint, if you want to, or even just from a cultural standpoint, when we start carving out things like hate, you carve out hate because hate never brings peace. It might bring a certain sense of control to a particular group because they get to define who's in and who's out. But ultimately, that doesn't bring peace. That doesn't bring peace to the group because then they're constantly fighting and building up those walls to say, you're in, you're out. And there's always a tension to say, well, are they trying to get in? Are they trying to get us? Are they trying to do our stuff? You know, there's never peace there. There's always restlessness. And if you're the group outside, you're always wanting in. You want more. So there's always restlessness. Hate leads to restlessness. Okay? And restlessness is the opposite of peace. Right? So we start carving out the things in our lives or in the world that don't bring peace. We choose peace by carving out the things that don't bring peace. So how do you choose peace? You do it by removing the things that don't bring it. And that's the hope. I think that's the hope in all of this. In both of these scriptures, in this message, in this first week of Advent, that peace is on the horizon. We have to be ready and alert for it. And the way we are ready and alert for it is that we start choosing peace today. Peace is coming and we can choose it right now too. The peace of the future, and it's a kind of, if you take nothing else away from this message, if you just remember the one thing, remember this one thing. The peace of the future begins with the peace we choose today. The peace of the future begins with the peace we choose today. So the things I want you to do, I'm wrapping it up here. The things that I want you to do, I want you to wake up and pay attention to the world around you. Wake up and pay attention to everything around you, not just your little isolated bubble. You gotta choose to wake up and be alert. Because you're never going to know where you're going. You're never going to be able to take that journey toward peace if you don't know where you are. If you don't know what's going on. And really know what's going on. Wake up and pay attention. And then the other thing is I want you to realize the peace of tomorrow. I want you to realize the peace of tomorrow by carving out the things that don't bring peace today. Realize the peace of tomorrow by carving out the things that don't bring peace today. I'm going to end this live stream. I'm going to end this message with another song. It's a short one, but it's the perfect song to end a message on peace with. And it's one of my favorites, again, and it's Let There Be Peace on Earth. So I'll go ahead and I'll just sing it through one time. And if you know it, you can sing it too. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God our Creator, children all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. And let it begin with you. Choose peace. Choose to go on that journey. I'll see you next week.